I would have had to go hire a consultant, pay them some obnoxious amount of money to do this in something that it was probably a 2-hour process for me and Chad of back and forth and all the Q&A it did. And then I think end result a really good process for us as an organization.
I don't think people think about ChatGPT or even Claude being able to be used on things that maybe didn't start in AI. So you always want to take AI and tell it who to be. You need to give it a role, just like you would a person or organization. So he's using this as his consultant, as his $1,000 an hour thinking partner that is just on ChatGPT.
It's intended to be an augmentation tool to what we do, not a replacement for the people that we have in place today.
Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Couch. This is the spot where leaders talk about the stories, strategies, and systems that win in the building industry. We unpack how leaders and brands build their reputations and become unmistakable.
Welcome to AI in the Field. Today we're going to be talking to one member of Do It Best who is using it in almost every part of his business. First off, I'm Stephanie Couch and I'm the founder of Grit Blueprint. I'm a brand partner with Do It Best, and I'm excited to be here today talking about one of my favorite subjects with someone who's wearing one of my favorite colors. So he really showed up for the occasion here. I'm joined by Jason Blair. He is the CEO of Tal Building Centers, which is a family-owned company in the Pacific Northwest with 28 locations. Jason has over 35 years in our industry. He started stocking shelves at a lumberyard in college and has had leadership roles at True Value and other companies like Hawksworth Galbraith. He has managed relationships with some of the largest independent dealers in the U.S., and now he has been leading Tal since 2022 and is a board member of Do It Best. 15 months ago, he actually started an internal AI committee. When we started talking, I was really interested in the fact that he not only allowed his IT team to do things with AI, but he has enlisted his entire company, and they are doing some really great stuff. So they're not just talking about it in theory, but using it every day. So thank you for joining me, Jason. I'm excited to start with this first question. And throughout this time, if you have questions, you can just raise your hand and we can answer them as we go, or we will have a Q&A session at the end. When you think about AI, there's a lot of definitions and there's a lot of ways to use AI. What does that really mean to you? And what would you want everyone to know if they're kind of starting about AI? What do you want them to know? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, thanks for having me here today, Stephanie. To me, I would go back to starting the AI committee, really, of saying I wasn't sure what AI meant because it was confusing and it's such a 100-mile wide word and a definition. And one of the original charters of the AI committee was one was to put governance in place so that we as an organization understood what needed to go in our handbook, what do we want to keep our arms around. But secondly was to define what AI means for us at Tal. And in the definition of that for us is it's intended to be an augmentation tool to what we do, not a replacement for the people that we have in place today.
Yeah.
With this underlying goal of really making everyone better and more efficient in the role that they have.
When you think about, how many things that you could do with AI, a lot of people think these big, huge projects that cost millions of dollars and take years to complete. What's one of the simplest things that you've used it with that you thought, that just saved me 30 minutes or an hour that you think people might need to know about?
Yeah, one of the things I use it for on a monthly basis is summarizing financials and creating an email back out to my team. And it's something that in the past probably would have taken me, an hour or two over a day. So it'd be one of those projects I would start and let it sit and stop. And now I can take the base information, put it into AI, and just say, hey, write a summary that sounds like me, because it knows enough what my summary sounds like, and it kicks something out that's, probably when I started was probably 80% correct. I'd say it's 95% correct now. I'll go through Wordsmith a little bit, add a little color in a couple spots, and then I'm ready to send out. I do a weekly update on some activities we have going on with our board. Mm-hmm. And I actually have I create a project folder in AI, and it's called Friday Board Update. And it basically just allows me to, as a base update that probably would have taken me an hour to write, and it wrote it in 30 seconds. And now every week I just go in and say, update these on these topics, and it just creates a new email for me to send. It takes me Probably takes me 5 minutes.
And you're predominantly using ChatGPT
That
as
is
your
correct.
as your
For me.
tool for you
Yeah.
to use this for writing and things like that. Okay. Well, for those of you who are in the audience, I'd just love to ask you really quickly, how many of you are using AI on a weekly basis? Just raise your hand. Okay. How many of you are using it with ChatGPT? Is that your preferred? Okay. I also have just recently started using Claude. So if you're not using Claude very often, it's really gotten exponentially better in the last few months, especially at writing tasks. So maybe try that out. One of the things that I want you to walk us through, we were talking during our prep for this, and you talked about a project that you did. You called it Project Clarity, and you actually used handwritten notes to then make some analysis in AI and use it as a thinking partner and an analysis kind of consultant. So tell me about Project Clarity. What started it? Why did you actually need it? And then what happened from it?
Yeah, it was my first like not using AI to do silly stuff like just clarifying emails. So it was the first time that I took AI and thought, how can I use it in a more bold way? One of our audience members was part of the actually implementing of the project. Renee Kaufman, or she runs our purchasing team, and I had 3 departments that all reported to me that there was something wrong, and I didn't know what it was. And I don't believe they knew what it was. Like, we are all struggling to understand what I would define as there was friction happening between the departments. I couldn't put a finger on it. And what I did is over about a 3-week period is I just, every time it happened, whether it was in discussions with them or discussions with somebody else in the organization, that friction was causing something, I just wrote it down. Could have been 4 simple words, could have been a little paragraph. And after about 3 weeks, I have chat on my phones, and I took pictures of those 3 pages of notes. I just wrote a simple, hey, I'm having this challenge. Here are the departments. Help me through these notes I've taken. Help me understand what's going on. Not like what's wrong, but what's going on. And it went through and asked me some more clarity questions, wanted to understand a little bit more about the departments and what they do, or what I think they do, which was part of the important part of the whole entire project. And it came back with one of those sort of things as a leader. You're like, well, yeah, duh, that's exactly what the problem was. And what it said was is simply is your lack of clarity between these 3 departments, which is probably impacting the entire organization. And at the heart of it, we've grown rapidly as an organization. We've changed our structure. We've tried to adapt to this. We doubled in scale and count of stores, and volume size tripled, employee count in 18 months, and converted 5 computer systems to 1 at the same time. The world was complicated. We had job titles and job descriptions, and then the things people did, those 3 components. I guess in a 4 component, what people elsewhere in the organization thought people did were not aligned. End result was, I describe it as, well, in the project, it was 3 circles of a Venn diagram of really those components, and we knew that the overlap was really small. And as leaders, there were 3 leaders. It was their job to go out and to understand. And Chat actually drove the questions of what they needed to go ask the other people in the organization to help refine this. And then we worked through that as a group together. We met every couple of weeks, and they had some responsibilities in between. End result is it changed job titles, job descriptions. It changed some process tools, some automated tools we use internally were not aligned correctly. And it was a result of somebody read somebody else's job title and thought, when this comes in through we have something called Tal Connects, a ticketing software. When it came in, they just assumed it went over here. Well, and logically, it should have gone there because that's what the job title said, but it wasn't what the real person really get. So all of that provided clarity not only to those 3 departments that were working together, but also to the rest of the organization, and opened up some channels that need to be opened up, create some process efficiency at the end. And end result was there was a little more change that happened a couple months after that, but I think that put us in a much better long-term position as a company. But that fundamental component that we needed to get through, that I, as a leader, I would have had to go hire a consultant, pay them some obnoxious amount of money to do this in something that really Chat, it was probably a 2-hour process for me and Chat of back and forth and all the Q&A it did. And then, we re-engaged it a couple of times. It kicked out of PowerPoints. We had to refine it a little bit. And it was, I think, end result of a really good process for us as an organization.
A few key takeaways that I think for each part of that I love. Number one, I don't think people think about Chat GPT or even Claude being able to be used on things that maybe didn't start in AI. So one of the takeaways I would give you from what he has used there is that you can actually take handwritten notes. Or how many of you have Zoom calls or Teams calls that you record? Anybody here record those? All right, so you can take the transcripts from those and you can actually utilize those with ChatGPT as a thinking partner, as a strategist. So you always want to take AI and tell it who to be. You need to give it a role, just like you would a person or organization. So he's using this as his consultant, as his $1,000 an hour thinking partner that is just on ChatGPT. So you can actually take pictures, like he said, with your phone, and then take that picture of your handwritten notes or your thinking that you've done on your own, and you can put it into this AI tool and it will use it as an analysis or strategic thinking partner. So if you haven't done that, it's a really great way to get things from different mediums and put it into one tool. You don't have to use it that way. And then the second thing that he mentioned that I think is really important is actually letting AI interview you. And I usually tell it to interview me one question at a time. How many of you have given ChatGPT something and it gives you a list of like 30 questions to answer? Anybody had that happen? It's a little overwhelming. So if you ask it to ask you one at a time, then it will take your questions and your answers and it will be thoughtful about the next question based on your answer. And that way you can really get great information without having to give it everything all at once. So Jason's doing a great job with his team. What was the outcome? I mean, how did your team feel when you came back and said, here's what I got from this? I mean, we could just ask Renee. She's right here.
She is right there.
But we're not going to put her on the spot right this second. But what did your team say about this?
It was interesting because I would say that the original launch, the presentation that I did with them was a little clunky because it was the first time I had used chat to have an output. Also, I didn't allow myself enough time, honestly, to absorb it and think about it. But that was okay. It was a good journey together because I think it helped them understand how to use the tool a little better too for a project to that regard. I know Renee uses it infinitely more now than she did before we did that project together. And, so I think the end result was confidence in having another tool that it becomes this Harvard level MBA assistant for you.
Yeah.
Can I give a really fun way to use your phone
Yeah,
and chat?
let's do it.
This is my favorite personal way to use chat. If you've never taken a picture and asked it to do something, the next time you go to dinner and there's an enormous wine list in front of you, make sure you have it on your phone, take a picture of it, tell it what you're eating, and ask it to pick you the best wine. It is absolutely incredible what it will come back with.
That's super cool. Yeah, and you could even give it a budget. Like, I only want to spend $50
absolutely.
or whatever.
It's a fun testing of I'm uncomfortable with business notes, but I want it to look at a wine list, and it's fun.
Yeah, and it can do so many cool things that aren't related to business, which I know once you start, it's kind of addicting to be like, well, just ask chat.
Yep.
I saved my marriage several times with disputes where I know I'm right and ChatGPT does too, and so it proves that every time. Well, you've used it in this AI committee. So I get, these are two questions I get a lot. Number one is, we don't know what to start with. We don't know what we should use AI for and what not. And then the second thing, and you mentioned this earlier, using it to put your P&L into it every single month. And I get a lot of questions around, well, that's proprietary information and it's really private and I don't know about putting it into this open source platform. So tell me a little, because OpenAI is the owner of ChatGPT, so the open part scares people. So first question is, how did you decide to have an AI committee and how do they know what to focus on? And then the second question is, how do you handle security issues or legal issues?
Yeah, so two great questions. So the first was, I picked somebody in our organization that was very passionate about using it already. And he actually taught himself, I wouldn't say he taught himself, he figured out how to use it to, we're on BizTrack and you can do some programming in BizTrack. And instead of hiring a programmer, he was smart enough to figure out how to tell it to do what he needed. And so I used him as the centering position with some guidance of, I really felt like as an organization, we needed to have representation across the organization, different departments, different age ranges. And I think and the committee's kind of grown. I've let it sort of do its own thing. I think there's like 10 people on it now.
Wow.
And lots of different perspectives of that. Their first part was to determine governance. And so I think there's 5 or 6 different platforms that we're using that are specific to like a ChatGPT, OpenAI. So our rule is that if we're going to use it for sensitive information in the company, we pay for it. And then if you pay for it, you're able to set it up in the security settings so your information doesn't go outbound to the open source.
Love
I
that.
also have this theory that everyone already knows what the heck we're doing anyway, so it's a little bit of a moot point. But having that governance around that, having it in the handbook, and I mean, look, you can protect it to some regard. One of the interesting things is that Copilot in Microsoft actually is one of the worst at the security controls around it. We actually are not using it because we have an outside IT partner. We can't figure out how to use it in a way that doesn't protect all of the really personal and private information in the organization.
Yeah.
And so it's actually not at least not at this point, it's not one of the better tools in my opinion, even though it's integrated.
It's interesting because there's a lot of big companies that use Microsoft Copilot because they think it is the safest one because it's integrated with their other systems. But I'll withhold my opinion on Microsoft, but it's not my favorite.
This episode of the Grit Blueprint podcast was sponsored by Do It Best Group. Do It Best Group is the largest co-op in the world, and they help independent hardware and lumber yards all over North America win. Do It Best offers services, products, and people that can help you win long term. They are the champion of independence.
Okay, for someone in this room who has a one store location, maybe they don't have 500 employees, they're not going to have a committee. How do they start working with AI, and what would you give advice on? How can you make a committee without having to actually make a committee?
But I would argue that you can make a committee. You have a story of people working for you, different departments. Like you still can create, even if it's 3 or 4 people. You want to create an environment where I think as a leader, I would think I've got a couple of my teammates here. They would probably say that AI it's important because we don't know what it's going to do. Like in the time we spend here talking, it's gotten exponentially smarter because it's the way the whole thing works. And so the sooner we embrace it, the better. I think you can do that even in a single store. Like, there's things like we use it to do PO verification in the company, like simple things like that. Like how do you find those really manual jobs in a single store location? It's just that we have the same challenge. We just have it 28 times. So I think it's the same idea. Maybe you don't have 10 people on it, but maybe you have a few. The other thing that's been a really interesting journey for me is I am a fan of understanding how different generations function because it makes your life easier when you interact if you understand what generation you're interacting with. And I believe you can throw that out the window with AI. Some of the youngest, smartest, most progressive people in my organization are the most afraid of AI. And maybe that's a potential job threat they're worried about. But I'll tell you, some of the older generations have latched onto it. It's made their world easier. For me, one of the unintentional outcomes for me is not only does it make my job easier, but I feel like I use it every day. And I feel like I learn something every day, which as you get older, it's hard to have these opportunities. I've been in the same industry for a long time. And so you learn things in a very different way. I learned a little bit about myself. I learned it's identified some weaknesses in my leadership skill set, and it helps support those for me. And I need that. And it's identified some business options, some things I might not. I'm looking at the same stuff all the time, and you become blind to some of the things that you should be looking at. And it's saying, hey, knucklehead, hey, you think this is great, but it's not. And you need to take a look over here too.
Yeah, the blind spots point is another way you can actually help get some things out of it that you would never prompt it to. So if you get a strategy, or you have a P&L, or you have a job offering or whatever, and you want to say, hey, tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what my blind spots are here. What am I not seeing? Or how should I look at this a different way? It's really great to prompt AI that way to get something that maybe you would never ask it on your own. And you're using some of this stuff for tools. Is it true that you have an AP department that's using AI and there's only 2 people in the department in a $225 million company?
Yep, 2 people.
Tell me about that. So how are you using AI to make that possible?
We use a couple of automated tools to help processing. So they're AI. I think that's one of the things that you need to think about is AI is not just ChatGPT and Claude. It's also the smart integration products that are built for the other components. I think about our expense credit card. We use Ramp. Everyone's seen these advertisements for Ramp. I would bet you as an organization, it's probably saved us a couple hundred hours a month
Wow.
in processing because it is so smart that when it sees it sees a charge, these two are shaking their heads because it's the saving grace for us. You take a picture of receipt, after a little while, it knows exactly where it needs to be coded and goes. It's just done. It's
Wow.
like done. There's no monthly reconciliation. I mean, we have an approval process and a couple things, but like just like that, you think about in the past, sat over an AP and they would have to have all these spreadsheets going out around our organization, and all that had to happen. So as we take all that off, the PO verification on the front end is also made a big difference. So we have a person, and part of her job is all the POs that our purchasing team writes. She gets, after the confirmations come back, she's there to compare them. And guess what? If they match, that makes AP's job a whole lot easier. Whole lot less stuff kicked out on the AT side because we used AI to validate it on the front end. Besides the automation tools we have an expense automation tool and the VizTrack built-in automation tool for the AP for the inventory side.
Tell me about the price competitive shopping, because I've been asked already several times at market. The one thing, I haven't figured this out, so maybe you have the answer to this. How can you go get Home Depot and Lowe's prices to competitively shop and compare? I know they have something that blocks that, but
Yeah.
you maybe found a way around that.
Every time we get around it, we get blocked. Like
Okay.
we get around it for a little bit. We've looked at quite a few products out there, and we're not convinced that there's this great solution that doesn't require a lot of heavy lifts
Yeah.
still.
Okay, I've been asked that
Unfortunately.
multiple times, and I've said I think they block it, and they have a lot more money to block that than probably
Yeah.
anybody else. So it's going to be hard. But there are ways. I think the biggest thing is that you can go and manually find those prices on maybe your top 20 items that are super competitive, and then you can use AI to figure out what you can do around that. So you can still use AI for it, but it's just not going to be as easy as scraping their website to go see that their OSB 7/16 OSB is XYZ and their 2x4 studs are this. You're gonna have to do a little manual labor on that because they're smart. But it's definitely, how are you using it for price comparison and thinking about how to go to market and what to do on certain things?
The purchasing and sales team have a weekly meeting, and they're leveraging a little bit of AI to understand, like, there are some websites out there that we're able to scrape data off of every week and do some from a comparison piece. I think on the we're in 4 states. We have a big geography. So I would say that it's a little bit of that conversation of, I think that you can lean into AI to give guidance, but in this case, it's still something that the human perspective, the relationship, the understanding, the sales team understanding what's happening in the market, dealing with particular competitive situations, really creates the output for us on the price side still.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something we've decided to move that far down that path yet.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Humans are sometimes change adverse, most times change averse that I've seen in my life. How do you deal with people who are very against AI that are in your organization? So that's the first question, and then I'll ask you a follow-up.
I have the leader of our IT department is one of the younger leaders in our organization and was one of the most resistant. And it finally got to the point where I had to personally show him how I use it and how it makes my life easier. Then I assigned him a project that he had to do using AI, and it was going to be pretty obvious if he did or didn't use AI. And then he morphed, he went from 0 to 1,000 pretty quickly, and has figured out that it will make his life a whole lot easier in general. We use we talked earlier, we use a product called Loom to do some recordings internally. We're on BizTrack. We have this ongoing project called Mastering BizTrack as we find new and better ways as an organization to streamline process. We use Loom to record it, and then we use Loom to create the outputted documentation so that we create policy or procedure around whatever that might be. So when that team latched onto that allowed them to do those actually at a pace a little quicker than the field could absorb, but that's okay because we're just creating a library, and then we can go and assign those later.
Yeah, anybody in here use Loom, Loom, to make videos? So one of the biggest things when I was in my dad's lumberyard, but also when I got to two-step distribution, is how many of you have ever tried to train someone how to do something over the computer without being able to be there to show them where it is? And then you show them and then they forget in a week and you have to show them again. This is something that you can record your screen as you do something in your ERP or as you do something on, your payable software, whatever you're using. You can record the screen. You can also record your video. You can also get a transcript out of it. You can even make a standard operating procedure that has screenshots of each stage. So it's a really great tool. It's not very expensive. And I use it every single day to train my team or even just to make processes for myself. And I always say, if we're going to do it more than once, let's make a repeatable video out of it. Because me spending an hour showing somebody something one time, and then I can just save it and use it forever, that saves me hours every single week doing that. So it's a great tool and it's not very expensive. So if you don't have that, I would check that one out.
Yeah, it's really great too for particularly when you get into a smaller organization, you inevitably, and even in a large organization, you have somebody on your team that's the master of your system at a level that others are not. And that risk mitigation of they know some things that you might not have to do for a year, or those year-end processes or quarterly processes, have them do that Loom video, record themselves doing it, and then you just save it in Loom and it's there. It's amazing.
Yeah, and also with the wave of retirements that's coming in our industry, if that master of your system retires in a year and you don't have any kind of videos of them showing some of those tricky things, it's scary. So it keeps me up at night thinking about that. All right, well, we're going to round out and then we'll go to questions. Where's this going? Where's AI going for Tal in the next 12 months? I mean, what's this committee focused on? What are they thinking about?
We're still in this, I think, this phase of I think like this inspect what we expect phase of it. So there's still heavy human involvement in what we're doing, and that's very intentional. We want to prove out over the next 12 months that the things that we know that what we call removing friction, a little different than the friction I talked about, Project Clarity, but where there's redundant processes that we can automate. We want to do that, but we know that's going to take time to validate that that's happening in the way that we want. And then we also need to understand what are the checkpoints along the way from a human perspective to make sure it's still functioning as expected. So I would see that it's about making the people that we have today more efficient. It's not about reducing the workforce we have. And then for Tal, when we grow again, that's where we will gain efficiency in people because we'll be able to do more with the folks we have without adding. And each department's using it a little bit different. I think about like how purchasing is learning a little more. We've got 3 people from our purchasing team here. And I know they're using it they're still learning how to use it, right? Fair statement. A little bit of we don't know yet until we just keep trying and trying and trying. And some of that stuff starts to stick. So I see it being a bigger and bigger part of just who we are over time.
Okay. Someone here that maybe is not an AI wizard or they aren't using it as much, if they needed to start today doing something that you think could really make a difference in their business, where would you tell them to start?
Yeah, I think I would download Chat and I would pay for the $20 a month subscription, and I would go in and figure out how as simple as a setup in there that just a toggle says don't share my information. And then I would start off simply just asking it to help you with whether it's writing emails or just tackling some everyday problems. Like just ask it to help you with that. Like whatever those small challenges are, start small and let it build, and you'll start to understand it better and it'll start to understand you better. And then it becomes like, for me, it's like my partner. It's my, the person I can't afford to hire, I have every day that helps me with all sorts of different things in my job. I think everybody's situation is a little unique. If your skill set in accounting is not great, have it help you with the accounting. If your skill set in item file management's not great, have it help you there. That's where I would start.
That's great. All right, I'm going to open up for questions. We got a mic right here.
Okay, so you started with the ChatGPT. Free to create that subscription. It would have a folder. Now, how do you integrate a voice in the pictures? And when it asks you questions, just throw it in there and then it.
Yeah, I use Loom for the video stuff, and it uses AI because it does all kinds of transcribing and it'll make processes and procedures. For me, I use Chat primarily for what I would say word or number based things. I know I don't think that Chat actually is the best product for AI video generation. There are some others out there that are a little more sophisticated in that route. That's the other journey as a company we're on is this team, every time they meet, they talk about what's new and which product should we use for which pieces. So marketing is using a different tool. I can't remember what the name of it is right now than some of the other folks are using out there.
To get your voice into it, though, the best way I know to do it is to actually ask it to interview you. So I would just tell it what you're trying to do. Hey, I'm a first-time user. I'm trying to let you know who I am and how I want you to act. I tell it to act like Barbara Walters and ask me deep Barbara Walters questions one at a time, like an interviewer. And I want to make this set up so it sounds like me and it only does what I want it to do. And then once you get the answers to that, you can put that into your settings in ChatGPT or Claude as instructions. You can also say, never say this word. I have a bunch of stuff programmed into mine, like don't sound like a corporate marketing robot. Don't say the word fluff. I hate it when it says the word clarity because it'll say these words. Like if you write something with it, it'll be like, well, we don't want any fluff and we're no fluff, all clarity. And it's like, if you say that again, like everyone's going to know that it's AI. So you can program that stuff in, but just ask it to interview you and you can put your website in there and it'll scrape. So you don't have to tell it everything. It'll just drop your link to your website in and say, get what you can from this, and then just read it and see if it sounds right. That's where I would start.
We had somebody on our team we had a communications person that was pretty savvy and built this Tal ChatGPT that we all leveraged going forward to had some of that. And then I do think too, like the personal voice, and maybe I misunderstood the question a little bit, was a little bit of trial and error. Like I would just tell like, that's not me. They'll use those words. I'm not that smart. Like and it really morphs over time. It's pretty obvious when somebody who's not used chat sends you an email from chat, and I'm like, that person's smart, but not that smart. And they've never used that word in a conversation with me before.
Well, I surmise the details from your latest transaction.
Yes.
They're like, no, that's not you. Yeah, it's great to get it to sound like a real human. So great question. Who else?
Have you experimented with AI trace voice generation for custom software or
For generating custom software?
or small 10 apps works too?
We have not, but we do use it quite a bit. So we use a product, the layers over BizTrack called Focus. It's their analytics software. And in both of those, you can write code that will then have it do new things. It's one of the things I do like about BizTrack. And so I would say not independent of, but to enhance what we already use.
I would say try Lovable or Replit if you want to build custom software. Lovable is a vibe coding software, and so is Replit. You can basically tell it what you want to build, and you can build custom apps and custom coding. Claude also has a really good coding called Cowork, Claude Cowork. So those are Replit and Vibe Code. You could probably build an app in one afternoon if you just tell it what you want. All right. Well, thank y'all for coming. And if you have more questions, I know Jason's going to be around the show, and he's a great resource doing some amazing things. And I will be here a few more times today at 2:00. We have a marketing panel, and then tomorrow, ChatGPT Basics at 10 o'clock. So thank y'all for coming.
Thank you for listening to the Grit Blueprint podcast. If this episode helped you think a little differently about how to show up, share it with someone in your building world who needs it. If you're ready to turn visibility into growth, then head to gritblueprint.com to learn more and book a call to talk to us about your growth strategy. Until next time, stay unmistakable.